December 1st, workout breakdown. VO2 max month is the monthly emphasis. It's why I wanted to do this video. Obviously, I guess not obviously, but we purposely put it on the first and purposely ending the month with one of the baselines. As you guys at this point hopefully know, the baselines, I try really hard to have the baselines line up with the monthly emphasis, as applicable as possible. It's not always the easiest thing in the world to do based off of timelines. But all the baselines you're going to see this month have some capacity have to do with VO2 max and your body's efficiency. So we're going to start with running. Just to be very clear, if you watch the monthly outlook video, I think I did mention that it's not always going to be running. We're gonna do your VO2 max training on all 4 pieces of aerobic equipment, kind of shuffle through them. Not an exact structure to it. But we are starting off with running. It's the easiest one. It's the most applicable one. It's I think the one that people are most common with and understand the easiest. It's not as technical as stuff like the ski erg and the rower. So I'm going to try to break this down the best I can, give you as much information on the first day of the month so you guys have a better understanding of kind of what you were looking to do throughout the course of the month of December. So the running warm-up, obviously you get 5 minutes to let you guys at your own autonomy warm up appropriately, get your legs underneath you, get your blood flowing a little bit, lengthen out your strides, etc., etc. You can do whatever you want there. A lot of people like to do some dynamic stuff rather than just hopping onto a treadmill. Some people like to approach it of like a negative. Your call, a little mix and match of both. You guys will then go into 10 rounds of this VO2 max work. So we do this stuff kind of like all the time. Like I don't think VO2 max month should be shocking to anybody in terms of like what we're actually doing. It's just gonna be more structured. So we're gonna have a little bit more specific VO2 max stuff. Again, we do this kind of stuff all the time on all sorts of different pieces of equipment. I think you should be fairly familiar. I think you're just going to see more like repeatable efforts, a little bit more emphasis on percentages and paces, target goals. And I'm trying to get you guys to have some more individual target goals, whether it's paces or speed or output as we go into these. And I'm not going to say we're going to do it every single day of the month because it's pretty exhausting. But a large portion of the month is going to have a specific VO2 max approach. So a little bit heavier this month on the aerobic side than normal, but obviously, as you guys know, I'm pretty big into the resistance training, and I'll do my best to make sure that we get the appropriate amount of resistance training we need in order to continue, growth on that side of things. So 10 rounds is 1 minute at 70%, a 1 minute walk or jog. So VO2 max, and there's a lot of gray area, right? I'm talking to groups here. So, it isn't like one size fits all. But in terms of like priorities, the VO2 max, obviously we're working at like increasing your ceiling, increasing your body's efficiency to use oxygen, the strength of your heart and pumping blood, and then your ability to regain composure after a hard or intense effort, right? But we want the floor to also elevate. And in order for the floor to elevate, we can't just run really, really hard. We have to work on our ability to get ourselves back down to a level of composure post the hard or an intense run, or whatever piece of equipment. It just happens to be run here. So what I mean by that is, like, I know a lot of people are going to be fixated on that 70%, but just as importantly, your ability to come back down on that 1 minute off, it's not really off, it's an active recovery, technically, I'll get in that in a second, and come back down to a respectable output is something we really, really want to work on in order to make our lives easier moving forward. So what I'm saying is, when you guys are aiming for 70%, like 70% is, everybody always asks, like, Corey, what is 70%? And it's different for every single person. It is not the same for anybody in the gym. Like, everybody's 70% is different. A lot of it is just based off individual capabilities, how well you know yourself, how precise you get. But 70% is you creating force. It's creating output. It's you, in easier terms, just trying a little bit harder. Like, you're legitimately trying to generate power when you're running. Whereas 60%, it's not that you're not moving and generating force, because of course naturally you are, but it's more of a home base, like your ability to hold a conversation with somebody next to you, right? Your ability to regain your composure and get your breathing back under control, take those deep breaths, like that's your 60%. Now, the caveats to that are, like, some of us are just not conditioned to either get to 70% at all, let alone hold it. And some of us are not conditioned to get to 60% and hold it. So although I'm asking you to get to 70 or 60% and you should be able to have a conversation, that doesn't mean you're necessarily conditioned enough to maintain those percentages and it work for you. So you guys have to figure that out on your own. You have to pay attention and kind of gauge your numbers a little bit. But just know that 70% is a slight uptick, obviously, from 60%. It's you actually generating a little bit of force. All right, you'll know when you do it. You're like, all right, here we go. Like I'm ramping it up. My heart rate's going to shot up a little bit. Maybe I'm running at 10 kilometers an hour on the treadmill at 60%, and my 70% a 10% jump up. Maybe I'm jumping up to 11.2, 11.4 kilometers an hour, and that's what I'm going to try to sustain. Now, when we're doing this 70%, typically when you see 70%, it should be sustainable, repeatable. You should be able to do it multiple times. That's the point of these 10 rounds here, is that it's not something that's going to kill you. It's not something that's going to cripple you. It's not you have to hop off the treadmill, get to your knees to try to catch your breath type of situation. Like that's not what we're aiming for. Like 10 rounds is a lot. Like I want you guys to be able to ping pong back and forth between the 70% effort and the 60% effort. Now, the active recovery, which I wrote walk or jog, because again, we're kind of covering all the bases here when we're in group fitness, is I want you guys to aim for 70%. Do your best to figure out what that 70% is based off of the speed, and then have the ability in a perfect world to come back down to 60% or a jog as an active recovery, and you're just going to keep ping-ponging. 70%, 60%, 70%, 60%. All right, and where things, again, get a little muddy, which I already hit on, and which is why I wrote walk, is that there's a lot of people that just are not conditioned enough to come back down to 60% and sustain that. You might need to come down to 40% where you're barely jogging, you're barely picking your legs up. You might have to come all the way down to a walk. If you really overshoot yourself and you just go way over 70%, you're like, well, that ain't right. Maybe you're just standing there trying to catch your breath, right? So there's a lot of volatility in there. And like I said, one size does not fit all. And I'm hoping you guys can use these, as the month progresses. We'll get a little bit more advanced as the month goes on, depending on how well this is received and how well people are doing with it. That we can get a little bit, we can get pretty cool in some of the workouts we can do. But this is very basic. Like this is black and white, 70%, 60%, back and forth, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, repeat it. I wrote repeatable on there. I didn't even see that. That's that. I think that's the best I can cover that as. And I really am hoping when we get not just out of December that you guys have a better idea of your numbers correlated to 60, 70, maybe 50% or higher. But you also just feel, like I wrote in our summary that I put on TV in the lobby, like lighter on your feet, your ability to bounce around and transition just elevates. And again, that goes hand in hand with your body's conditioning and how efficiently it's using its resources and, how strong your heart is and lungs. And again, when you start to see the improvement on these things, which by the way, like when you start doing VO2 max training, like target VO2 max training, like I said, we do this all the time, but it's gonna be really consistent right now. The improvement is crazy. Like it happens, that pivot or that transition happens very, very fast. And I'm a big advocate of like, you need to create a base and then just maintain that base aerobically until you want to do something more aggressive, right? So, doing an entire month of VO2 max target training is pretty aggressive for a lot of us. So I'm hoping you guys can kind of reap the benefits and just see the benefits of that as we progress through the month and obviously post that month. Following that, you guys are going to go into a second part of this. This is just more aggressive. So I think a lot of people are going to be playing with this a lot and just trying to answer questions and figure out what they can and cannot do. So I wanted to make something that was just more like anaerobic in the sense that you're gonna hold weight, post transition of the run. So when you transition off the run, which is again 200 meters meant to be a pretty aggressive run, you can transition quickly. You can still work on that. You can literally put your VO2 max training right to work. Obviously, you're going to be pretty fatigued from the power block, but you got these shuttles, obviously a carry ladder, and again, just making mental notes of how much more challenging things are post certain exercises is always good and helpful for future workouts. So, transitioning into carries is one of those things that when you have an elevated heart rate, you're sweaty, things fatigue a lot faster than you expect them to. And when I say things, I mean certain muscles, like whether it's your traps or your forearms or your wrists, it just becomes significantly harder than it would be if we just started with shuttles, and we just did, raw, dry, farmer's carries. So either way, you're going to do 200 meter run, 12 shuttles, 200 meter run, 9 shuttles, 6, etc. As you work your way down and get as far as you can in this ladder with whatever time you have left.